The car of the decade is the Bugatti. 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 Bugatti is not just a car. It is an idea, a vision born in the shadows of a dimly lit basement and carried into the bright glare of world stages where billionaires, royals, and dreamers all whispered its name with reverence. But Bugatti was not always a symbol of quiet luxury and speed. Its story began in the unlikeliest of places, in the restless hands of a boy who believed metal could sing, pistons could dance, and machinery could become poetry. This is the saga of Ettore Bugatti, a poor boy whose obsession with perfection created the world's most luxurious hypercars, and how his vision endured through tragedy, war, and rebirth to stand as one of the greatest symbols of engineering and art ever imagined. Ettore Isidoro Bugatti was born on September 15, 1881, in Milan, Italy, a city that pulsed with creativity and craft. His father, Carlo Bugatti, was a celebrated designer whose furniture, jewelry, and silverware were admired for their bold shapes and daring intricacy. Their home was not wealthy in money, but it was rich in artistry. Young Ettore grew up breathing in the smell of wood, paint, and metal, watching his father blur the lines between sculpture and utility. To Ettore, machines were not cold instruments. He saw in them a living elegance. At 16, when he was gifted a tricycle, most boys would have raced it down cobblestone streets. Ettore, instead, dismantled it, rebalanced its frame, adjusted its gears, and rebuilt it into something faster, sharper, and more stable. His father noticed this spark. This was no idle tinkering. This was vision, and vision had to be nurtured. With encouragement from Carlo, Ettore joined the workshop of Prinetti and Stucchi, a Milanese firm that built bicycles and sewing machines. Here, his fascination with gears and engines became an obsession. By 17, he had built his first motorized tricycle powered by twin engines. Crude by modern standards, but revolutionary for a teenager with no formal training. That tricycle, known as the Type 1, was his first step into the world that would one day call him a genius. By 20, he had designed the Type 2, and when it was unveiled at the Milan Trade Fair in 1901, it turned heads. Industrialists whispered his name. The French Automobile Club awarded him a prize. Suddenly, Ettore Bugatti was not just a boy experimenting in workshops. He was a rising star. Opportunities soon arrived in the form of Baron Adrian D. Dietrich, who hired him to lead a factory in Alsace. At just 20 years old, Ettore was designing cars under the Dietrich Bugatti name. But the heavy, bulky vehicles the Baron wanted clashed with Ettore's philosophy. He believed cars could be fast without being massive, elegant without being fragile. After a few years, restless and unwilling to compromise his vision, Ettore walked away. He knew he needed to build something that would prove everyone else wrong. In 1909, in the basement of his home in Cologne, he began sketching and assembling what would become his masterpiece. By lamplight and with borrowed tools, he created a small, lightweight automobile that defied convention. It weighed only 365 kilograms, yet its four-cylinder engine could reach 80 kilometers an hour, rivaling cars twice its size. Ettore called it the Type 10, nicknamed the Little Thoroughbred. It wasn't a machine of brute force. It was a racer with the spirit of a racehorse, nimble, fast, and full of life. With his family, he moved to Molsheim in Alsace, rented an abandoned dye works, and founded Automobiles Bugatti. The Type 10 was entered into races, where crowds first laughed at its tiny frame. But when it darted across finish lines and left heavier rivals in the dust, they stopped laughing and started clapping. A new philosophy had been born: precision over excess, elegance over brute strength. That philosophy carried Bugatti into its golden years. In 1910, the Type 13 appeared, with innovations like an overhead camshaft and 4 valves per cylinder. At the 1911 French Grand Prix, The small, nimble Bugatti stunned the world by finishing second. After World War I, Ettore returned to racing with even more determination. The Type 13, now refined, became unstoppable. At the 1921 Brescia Grand Prix, Bugatti cars finished first, second, third, and fourth. Victory after victory followed, and soon the Type 13 had earned more than 400 wins. Ettore's approach was working, but his true masterpiece came in 1924, with the Type 35. Sleek, curved, and designed with an 8-cylinder engine, it became the most successful race car in history. Over the course of 7 years, it won more than 1,000 races, including 5 consecutive Targa Florio victories in Sicily. At its peak, it was averaging 14 wins per week. The Type 35 was more than a machine. It was proof that engineering and art could live in perfect harmony. As Bugatti's fame soared, Ettore's son Jean joined the company, bringing a flair for design that complemented his father's discipline. Together they created road cars like the Type 57, whose Atlantic and Atalante variants became legends of beauty and performance. Meanwhile, a fearless woman named Helnice, the Bugatti Queen, captured public imagination by racing Bugattis across Europe, breaking records, and proving that elegance and speed could belong to anyone bold enough to command them. But the heights of glory could not protect Bugatti from the storms of history. The Great Depression devastated the luxury market. Orders vanished, and Ettore struggled to keep his factory alive. He pivoted to designing high-speed rail cars for the French government, and though they kept the company afloat, they were no replacement for his true passion. Then tragedy struck. In 1939, Jean Bugatti was killed while testing a new race car. Ettore was crushed. Within weeks, World War II erupted. The German army occupied Alsace, seized the Molsheim factory, and demanded production for the Reich. Ettore refused, but debts and pressure forced him to sell the company for far less than it was worth. In 1947, France returned the Bugatti name to him. It should have been a moment of triumph, but just 10 days later, Ettore Bugatti died at the age of 66. The genius who had redefined the automobile never lived to see his dream restored. After his death, the company faltered. Ettore's youngest son Roland tried to keep it alive, but new tax laws punished high-horsepower cars, and mass production left Bugatti's handcrafted approach outdated. By 1956, production stopped entirely. For decades, the legendary marque was silent, spoken of only in collectors' circles. It seemed as though Bugatti had died with Ettore, but legends do not die easily. In 1998, Volkswagen Group acquired the Bugatti name. They did not simply want to build another car. They wanted to create a masterpiece worthy of Ettore's legacy. The challenge was outrageous. Build the fastest, most luxurious road car in the world. Engineers doubted it could be done. A quad-turbocharged W16 engine, over 1,000 horsepower, a top speed beyond 150 miles per hour, and yet refined enough to drive to the opera. After 7 years of relentless engineering, the impossible became reality. In 2005, the Bugatti Veyron was unveiled. With a top speed of 250 miles per hour and acceleration from 0 to 60 in 0.5 seconds, it shattered records. Inside, it was handcrafted with leather, carbon fiber, and polished aluminum. It was not just fast, it was art. The Veyron was followed by the Chiron in 2016. With 1,500 horsepower and the ability to surpass 300 miles per hour, it redefined what a hypercar could be. Owners paid millions not just for a car, but for entry into history. Each curve, each stitch, each detail echoed Ettore's belief that machinery could be beautiful. And yet, even these triumphs came with challenges. Building cars this advanced was rarely profitable. Volkswagen treated Bugatti not as a business, but as a crown jewel of prestige. But the world was changing again. Emissions regulations tightened. Electric technology surged. In 2021, Bugatti merged with Rimac Automobili, a Croatian startup pioneering electric hypercars. Together they formed Bugatti Rimac, a company that would blend Ettore's heritage with the future of innovation. Today, Bugatti stands at a crossroads. It carries the weight of history and the promise of tomorrow. It remains the symbol of perfection born from the hands of a boy in Milan who saw art in gears and poetry in pistons. Ettore Bugatti's life was filled with triumph and tragedy, but his vision outlived him. The cars that bear his name are not just machines. They are rolling sculptures, reminders that perfection, though fragile, can endure. So when you see a Bugatti glide past, hear the roar of its engine, or feel its presence even at rest, remember this is more than a car. It is a dream forged in hardship, tested in war, resurrected by faith, and carried into the future by those who still believe that engineering and art are one. The poor boy who played with a tricycle built not just a brand, but a legend. And that legend, like the cars themselves, will never truly stop moving.